in relation to the objectives of this conference is to have different perspectives on what return on investment looks like. So we have a group of panelists from different perspectives, one a GME perspective, another one from a different part within our medical education system from an IRC level, and then another one from a C-suite perspective. And the idea here is to kind of triangulate around, return on investment and what success looks like with some of these projects. Talk from the perspective of people who have, come before us with this work. So I'm going to transition this over to Dr. Simpson, who is going to introduce our panel. Deb?
You're muted.
I thought when my video popped that I would be unmuted. I'm waiting for technology and AI to do everything for me. I know I'm looking at this to collaborate using Zoom Docs, but so first of all, thank you. I'm Deb Simpson. I'm the Director of Education for Academic Affairs in Advocate Health, located in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And I have been looking forward to this panel discussion because I think getting to figure out what the return on investment is and how we can maximize that from our national initiative projects is critical. So that's why we're having this astute, diverse panel join us today with these distinct lenses. As JP said, they are representatives of the GME look, a C-suite, and an ACGME IRC member. But what he didn't say is they're all friends and colleagues who have been actively involved in some way in a national initiative. So I'm delighted to help moderate this session and this panel as this amazing group of gentlemen who are each charged with giving us the answers for how to articulate the ROI of our national initiatives and pointing us to the future. While they've all worn multiple hats, they're going to, for this, put on kind of the roles we've just articulated. So with that background, we'll go ahead and get started and introduce them, starting with Dr. Aaron Levy.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Aaron Levy. I'm a pediatric hospitalist in Charlotte, North Carolina. Our organization has taken on very different names over the years, and we carry multiple, but I'm part of Carolina's Medical Center, Atrium Health, now part of Advocate Health. I'm also a medical school educator at Wake Forest University School of Medicine, soon to be Charlotte campus as well. And as part of this project, I am a newbie to the group. So this is my first AIAMC experience and national initiative. And I've been fortunate enough to be working with a bunch of experienced teammates and leaders within our organization where we've kind of, with this national initiative, been asked to, with the idea of the social and moral determinants of health, bring in this idea of environmental justice and climate health education, which is really important and is really a breaking area of conversation for our learners and our hospital systems at large. And so as part of that,
hang on, Aaron, before you talk about all of that, let's let everybody else introduce themselves, but tell us something fun about you, besides the fact that you are dealing with swarms of bees and kids needing from North Carolina because of all the rain.
Well, I personally am not. My mom did evacuate from Asheville safely, thank goodness, and thinking about all the people that are experiencing the extreme weather events across the Southeast. But I can tell you something fun that I just did recently with my 4-year-old daughter. We just went to see Simone Biles and...
Super. David, a little about you and something fun.
Something fun. First of all, I'm David Kountz. I'm an internist at Hackensack Meridian Health in New Jersey. If you forget the New Jersey part, you'll remember when you look at my background with one of our New Jersey lighthouses. Something fun. I went to college with a current Supreme Court justice. And when I do an icebreaker with medical students, I tell them that and I ask them to guess which Supreme Court justice. And more importantly, it gives me a sense of how old they think I am. So I won't betray that. I'll ask you guys to think about the question as well. And maybe at the very end, I'll tell you who it was. Thanks for letting me be with you today.
And Andy.
Hey, good morning. Andy Anderson. I'm a general internist, and my title actually is updated. I'm the Chief Medical Officer and Chief Quality Officer at RWJBarnabas Health in New Jersey. Fun. Deb knows, and others may know that I've actually commuted between New Jersey and Wisconsin quite a bit, and my fun part of that is watching Netflix and HBO Max. And if you ever need a recommendation on things to watch on a plane, I've got a long list. So I'm watching The Wire right now, which is an older series, which is just incredibly powerful. So if you haven't seen that, that's my recommendation today.
Great. Thanks, Andy. That's a hard way to keep up on Netflix, but keep going. All right. So now that they've each introduced themselves a little bit, I'd like the audience, as you listen to these colleagues, make sure you pop questions into the chat. And if you have a question, a specific question for a panelist, just note their name, the at David, at Aaron, at Andy, and we'll monitor the chat. So what they're going to do now is they are going to tell us a little bit about their NI involvement, sharing some examples of their own experience and how it's impacted their journeys. So now, Aaron, go ahead with your.
As part of a broader day of health equity for our new residents across numerous departments, I believe it's 14. We had 105 participants, and we started last year or the year before this, last year, with introducing the idea of climate and health education and sustainability as part of that day of health equity. And so we felt like expanding upon that and enhancing that experience for this year's onboarding residents and collecting some data as part of that would be a really exciting way to kind of examine where we are as a baseline with this type of education. And so you can see here some pre-data. So we had the residents fill out a pre-survey before their day in sessions regarding, you can see both their education, previous education within medical school on climate and health education, sustainability and the environment, to their comfortability talking to patients about this topic, and then kind of carrying on to their interest in pursuing further projects or experiences within this realm. And kind of to break, I know this is kind of a busy slide, to break it down, a lot of people felt like they had knowledge about the social determinants of health, the environment, or really the environmental determinants of health, where people live, work, play, but a lot less, kind of to take a gestalt of the data, a lot less felt as comfortable with their knowledge about the healthcare industry's footprint, with initiating conversations, with their background education in medical school. But reassuredly, we had a pretty decent interest in future involvement for those same residents. So just interesting baseline data that we've collected, and as part of that experience, the residents did an implicit bias exercise. They went on a tour of Charlotte as part of kind of what I would call a social determinants of health tour, where they saw the historical disparities and changes over from redlining within the Charlotte community. That's not exclusive to Charlotte alone, as you guys know. And furthermore, went into a climate and health education session. From there, and Deb, if you could advance the slide. really exciting. We did this onboarding, this resident day with one of our community partners, a nonprofit in Charlotte called, their nonprofit's called Envision Charlotte, and they have a home base called the Innovation Barn. The Innovation Barn is basically like a incredible space where people basically based on sustainability and a circular economy, where they support the community, small businesses, with having a sustainable framework in mind. So a really special place that was kind of a perfect arena to hold our education sessions and onboarding. You can see here the pictures are just an example of some of the work they do. They actually have a plastics lab. And so the picture on the left is just, you've probably all seen takeout containers from restaurants. And those were heavily used during the pandemic, but continue to be used heavily. A school here in Charlotte actually collected 1,700 of those. And the Innovation Barn, through their technology, was able to turn that into a bench that was needed nearby their school. So we kind of took that idea, and after an education session with the residents, really encouraged them to kind of think outside the box. And so this is a next picture here is actually one of my colleagues and I going through OR waste. We made sure all of the waste was clean. Don't worry, it was infection safe. But all the incredible amount of plastic and waste that gets produced by our hospital systems, just as an example of some of the impacts, and especially those that are kind of under-resourced end up getting a lot of the impacts due to where landfills are located, et cetera. And so we took some of these examples of plastic waste, brought them to the Innovation Barn and the resident onboarding, and we asked them for ideas for how we could repurpose this medical waste into something that could be purposeful for their patients. We heard everything from pillboxes to some food items or dinnerware items that they could use in the cafeteria. But the winning idea that was both feasible and we felt like the most purposeful was a group coming from the PM&R group, actually came up with the idea to create a plastic socket for prosthetics. I learned a lot through this because I didn't know that when you're first getting fitted for a socket, it has to be remolded and refitted, especially in young people, over and over and over again. And they use a temporary plastic socket for that. And they just use new plastic every time. So the idea is that this could actually be created from residual clean medical plastic for patient use. So that's just kind of a sampling of some of the work that we engaged the residents in, so that they could start thinking about healthcare waste, sustainability, and working with our community partner to see how we could actually think outside the box in terms of healthcare delivery, especially for our most vulnerable populations.
Great. Thanks. What a great example of having a community partnership and leading to some productivity. David, tell us about your AI involvement.
Happy to. So a little bit of background. I joined what was then Meridian Health in 2007. I had spent 11 years at Robert Wood Johnson Medical School in New Brunswick. And at the time, Jersey Shore had GME programs, but I would say they were a little loose in terms of connection with guidelines. Not to say they were on probation, but we didn't have any employed physicians. We were having a lot of rotators from local medical schools. And it seemed like an opportunity to refresh and grow as a stronger academic environment. I became involved in the AIAMC for National Initiative 2, I think. I kind of first became involved as a reviewer of abstracts, but I always left the meetings feeling very included, that it was a community of like-minded educators who went out of their way to make you feel part of the group. And that was something I valued very early on, and probably led to my desire to become part of the board, to lead several of our national initiatives, because I really felt that sense of inclusion. And several years later, as we went through the various national initiatives, it really allowed us to think about ensuring that we were really, one, educating our learners and our faculty around focuses such as the clear visits and faculty development. I couldn't find a better organization that allowed our growing community hospital to do that. And then several years later, we started new programs at one of our other community hospitals in our system. And this is where I started to view the tie-in to the Institutional Review Committee. By the way, JP, who's co-leading the session, is on this committee, as is Jennifer Tourneau, who you heard from a few minutes ago. JP has been my mentor on the committee. I've been on for 2 years, so I thank him for that leadership. And it's the ACGME committee that provides initial accreditation to hospitals. It does other things. It responds to complaints, but it really looks at these applications from new sponsoring institutions, which requires a lot of structure, a lot of attention to detail. And I saw the connection as we were developing new programs to the work of this committee. And I think that even though I wasn't on the committee in 2015, 2016, 2017, connecting with members of that committee as we developed our application for what was an Ocean Medical Center, I think really helped us really think critically about putting a strong application together and getting initial accreditation without citations. And I wanted to be part of the IRC so that we could help other organizations, create that environment in their hospitals. If you could go, Deb, to the next slide I have. The other thing that if you've heard me talk about I think the real value of the AI-AMC, it's through these national initiatives, and it's particularly around the engagement of residents. And you heard Aaron talk about this with his project in Charlotte. And over the years, as I said, we've been part of many national initiatives. There's really nothing that gives me greater joy than seeing our residents take leadership roles on these projects. This is a picture from 2023. Kelly Usry-Kronhaus, who's one of our leaders, who's on this call. I see her name, because she's in the front with Dr. Ken Kronhaus. These are our program director and associate program director, respectively, in our family medicine residency at Ocean. And the resident standing next to me is Dr. Josh Wheatley, who led our project on a JEDI, Justice, Equity, Diversity, Inclusion Strategic Plan, which I still get calls about from other parts of our health system to take a look at and see if on a local level we can implement this at some of our other campuses. And it's been one of my great joys, as I said, to have a similar picture over the years with different residents who I know will go out, pay it forward. And again, linking back to the Institutional Review Committee goals, be involved in medical education, probably some degree of graduate medical education, understand structure, understand process, understand metrics. And I think the NI and the AI-AMC provide all of that. And if I saw 2 institutions applying to the IRC, and one had involvement in AI-AMC, the other didn't, I would think that it's more likely that the organization that has started to get involved with AI-AMC will be in a better position to get accredited and get accredited with fewer citations. It provides a degree of structure and organized thought that from the standpoint of a reviewer on the IRC, I think really strengthens what that hospital brings, not only to the ACGME, but what they provide to their trainees. So Deb, why don't I stop there, and I'll be happy to make more comments when we get to Q&A.
Super. Thanks, David. Again, the vital role of the structure and role of the AIMC's national initiative, and engagement. We're seeing that theme: engagement with community, engagement with residents, and then going forth. All right, Andy, we have you tapped to be like the evil C-suite that doesn't give us the money we want. Tell us.
Right on.
It is not.
What
It is not Andy's hurt, but
what true. And I've been a part of AIMC for over 10 years. I co-chaired the national meeting in 2015 in New Orleans, and have admired the work and the focus. I think in particular, the national initiatives bring focus in a particular project area that puts the folks doing the project at the highest levels of an organization. And if that's not happening, it should be. So the CEO of your organization should be 100% aware of the work that's being done through these national initiatives, because they have a lot of impact. And by creating a focus, you're more likely to really get things done, important things done. And I wanted to comment on a couple of pieces that came up from my colleagues, and one of those is engaging learners and creating value-added learners that truly do contribute to the mission of a hospital or a health system. And ideally, you're going to not only engage them but activate them, get them excited, really get them working on something that's important to them and to the hospital and the health system. And ideally, the learners that we're engaging are going to be the learners that are going to be the workforce of the future. And we all want to hire them and have them be part of our health systems and help us provide care for our patients and our communities. The other frame I wanted to mention is the opportunity through AIMC to share best practices. And that's another big value add of the national initiatives is the work that is being done should be shared and is shared between the different institutions, and you can borrow from others and really try to incorporate those best practices into your own institutions. And so that ability to have a network of colleagues who are doing similar work and sharing those best practices is very powerful. And then on an individual level, the participants will develop a network of colleagues, people that you can call, ask questions, run problems by. I think that's another very value-added part of what AIMC and National Initiative is about. So those are some opening comments. I'm sure we'll dig into more of that in the Q&A.
Andy, I think that's a great transition. Andy, maybe we'll just go in inverse order this time. How, as a national initiative participant, can you best articulate what they are doing and why it's valuable? You said if it's not visible, it should be, but how do you do that?
It's one of those things where you have to talk about it, 100 times. Maybe not literally 100, but it can't just be an email saying, hey, by the way, we're participating in this national initiative. And my advice is to involve your leadership all along the way, from the very beginning when you're framing the project, to ask for advice, ask for input. That way it creates a connecting point and lets the leadership know that the team is working on this, and then provides the opportunity for the leadership to weigh in, but then updating along the way to say, hey, here's how it's going. And then when there are results or the projects, getting to the point of having poster presentation or some other formal presentation, making sure that gets communicated in multiple forms within your hospital or your health system. So a lot of communication all along the way, from the beginning to the middle to the end, to make sure that your hospital and health system leadership is aware and engaged and contributing. And as you do that, it'll create some energy and excitement that for the next national initiative, you may get asked the question, hey, what are you going to do next? So that's really what you want to build, that momentum in your institution.
Oh. David, Aaron, thoughts?
And I remember presenting it at one of our academic affair subcommittee meetings, and our health system had such a pride, and then held me accountable to say, okay, we see this is great. Please now be ready to provide us every 3 to 6 month updates. We would talk about it on our GMEC meetings. I would put it in a monthly report. I would have residents be the ones who would talk about their experiences. So I agree. It's really important to use multiple channels, and it builds an energy. And one of the things I've seen and as the NIs have evolved is bringing in other types of other individuals within your health system. So not just physicians, not just residents, but nurses, chief diversity officers, social workers, and that kind of expands the level of interest within a hospital or a network.
Yeah, and I think just to piggyback off what David said, exactly, it synergizes with some of the other. I've had people reach out based on this project, including actually a nurse. We've had several residents who followed up on the project we did, even medical students, and then colleagues across departments. I've been fortunate enough to have leadership as part of our team, and so that helps in that respect. But to really to have people kind of create interest across departments, especially across a big organization, helps synergize not only with this project, but into other projects, which really helps it become more sustainable long-term as this isn't meant to be a one-off.
Yeah, the sustainability is a huge question because, you know, if all of us who are doing our projects right now are thinking, okay, we have an quote end date because we've got our meeting 3 here and then we'll have meeting 4. At some point you can't keep adding projects. There's only finite resources. How do you all keep the sustainability going beyond the single champion? JP's smiling. He's
I mean, I can jump in real quick. I think, you know, I'm coming from the angle of with community partnership. I think having our nonprofit, the Innovation Barn, using your community resources, those are the sustainable resources that know what the community needs, has all the networking capabilities within the community, is not limited to a 3-year residency program. What it does is it creates that anchor for your project and for further projects to keep the momentum going. And so working with Envision Charlotte, I feel like we've already had them reach out to us actually multiple times for multiple more ideas. And that actually helps pull in new residents and new providers to kind of get excited. So I think having those community partners, at least from my perspective, has actually already kind of cemented the sustainable aspect, because they're already reaching out to us to keep this going rather than us having to keep it going and reaching out and feeling like we're having to do all the heavy lifting. They have those resources and networking and connections, and it makes it a lot more the transition a lot more smooth.
Yeah,
I like to,
if I can just to add to that comment, because there was just an article published in New England Journal of Medicine last June that really commented on the point that Aaron is making about these lack of institutional bridges that exist, and the importance of the community partnerships to ensure some level of sustainability, going forward. So I just wanted to make that comment to connect the dots to some other, thoughts that are out there. But Andy, sorry about that.
I like to think of it sort of like continuous quality improvement, that the work never is quite done and there's opportunity to do it better over time. And part of that mindset is the fact that we can get to better outcomes if we continue to look for those best ways to do things. The other side of that is it has to live somewhere. There has to be an owner, or a person, or a team, or a committee that has to check in on it and have it sort of on the agenda on some regularity, so that there does continue to be focus and attention paid to it. But these initiatives are in subject matter areas that we all need to work on. And so it is a great way to create that focus and then create the sustainability around it. And back to ownership, I find that it doesn't necessarily need to be one person. It could be a team, that really owns it. One person needs to lead the team, but having more than one owner is part of that sustainability strategy.
Great. One final question before we open it up to the audience, and when we do, please be prepared to turn your camera on and your audio to ask questions. A lot of these projects take resources and time and effort. How do you navigate getting those resources when your GME budget says, haven't got it?
So let me maybe comment about that, Deb, and to pick up on the other points. You do need a real local champion. And again, I use the experience at Ocean, and Dr. Usri Kronhaus was our champion, but she also engaged other program directors at that site. And so they had a team approach. And very importantly, they also early on, as they thought through their project, connected with an initiative that was important to them, but also important to the network, to the hospital. And that's almost a way to build in sustainability. If you identify and think through carefully a project that's important to your C-suite, you're more likely to get shared resources because it's on their to-do goals as well. So our organization has been on a journey to expand diversity. I can go on and on about that, but lots of us are on that type of journey. And so to pick working on a diversity strategic plan was perfectly aligned with where that hospital's CEO was going, where our chief nurse executive was going. And so I think part of it is having those early conversations to ensure that there's an alignment between your project and the goals of the health network. That's one way to have a greater opportunity to have sustainability when you have that degree of alignment.
Maybe just one quick word there, and related to what David said, is sort of plugging into existing resources. And again, this is work that most health systems and hospitals are already doing, and bringing value-added learners to help move that work forward more quickly is not that hard of a sell. And so, grabbing onto what's already there and building onto it is a way to have resources.
Great. I think we've got some great take homes. There is a question that JP had in the chat about the social and moral determination of tour. That's a little off this topic, but it's
Deb,
great one.
I apologize for interrupting, but before we address JP's question, as the speakers are talking, I'm just having this whole mind meld of things that have gone well over the last 17 years with these initiatives. And I would encourage you, as the speakers already have, to get this project on your management team meetings, your GMEC meetings, your C-suite meetings, just make it a standing agenda item. The other thing that I don't think has been mentioned that I would encourage you to do, now I know we're a little later in the game, but not too late. I would encourage you at the beginning of an initiative, then maybe midpoint toward the end, have a request from your CEO that a resident team member present the project to the board of trustees. We haven't talked a whole lot yet about the board, and I'll tell you what, just as we love the residents, and that's what keeps us doing what we do every day, and it really inspires us, like David said, just having those residents on the team makes it so worthwhile. Your boards feel the same way. They know they're leading a teaching hospital, and it can be very moving and very compelling to have a resident go to the board and talk about their experience. They hear from vice presidents and directors. They don't usually hear from residents. So just something I wanted to interject before my 61-year-old mind forgot it. Thank you.
Well, it's actually also, what do you all, let's reframe that a little bit as a question. What do you all think of those strategies that Kimberly just highlighted? Thumbs up from Andy.
We have a panel, and to Kimberly's point, although this is not exactly related to our NI initiative, the board wants to hear from a resident. It's a panel about workforce, and I could drone on and on but they specifically said, David, please pick a resident to talk about not only to ask about that particular resident, but saying, how's that initiative going? So they're much more likely to kind of connect with it, I think, from a resident than, one more talking point from a VP.
Yeah, just to ditto that, we recently had I was talking to a DIO with a dialogue about fringe benefits and trying to get those increased for a residency, the GME program. And some of the most persuasive narrative and comments that influence the CFOs and the decision makers were resident narratives and comments and presentations. They see that.
GME dollars or something related, there's nothing more powerful than bringing a resident to some type of hearing and having them talk about their experiences. So that also, in that type of context, they are a very powerful voice that we probably underutilize. Sorry for interrupting. Yeah.
And I think that's fine. I think press releases as well, having them be interviewed, we've had some opportunities for that. Adrian, do you want to pop on and ask your question? Are you able to unmute and put your video on?
I'm trying to, but we've had issues with.
Oh, just talk to us then.
Yeah, so I guess here's my question. I went through a couple of these already outside of AAMC, but we think of sustainability in 3, 5, 10 plus years because or for physicians, we think chronic, right? So what happens when GME leadership, program leadership, or C-suite leadership changes, and so do their priorities? Their mission and alignment or mission values might be the same, but the strategic priorities might change. So how do you navigate that? Because that drives where resources go, that drives the direction of an organization, it drives what the current direction is going to be. So how do you navigate it when leadership changes invariably?
It's a great question. Just, one quick tactical response is we've purposefully made sure our chief academic officer position is at the table, the C-suite table, if you will, on a regular basis. So as members change, it's not likely the whole C-suite is going to change. That person is connected to the overall strategy of a hospital, for example. So that helps create that connectivity. It helps the chief academic officer and the GME leadership be more aware of the overall strategy, and it also allows that person to feed up the GME priorities to the thinking of the C-suite. So having that person at the table purposefully is important.
And I'll pick up on Andy's point and kind of going back to the types of things you see as part of as a member of the Institutional Review Committee. I put the AIAMC initiative in our annual institutional review. And so if there are changes in leadership in that document, we can go back and say, we told the ACGME that an outcome of our work as a GME enterprise is to complete this project, this 18-month-long project. So this is also part of that, putting it down in writing and holding your organization accountable, even if there are some personnel changes.
Good strategy. Aaron, do you think that would work? Are you all going to make the Innovation Barn annual report with your project so that there's some visibility and accountability to keep it going?
Yeah.
That's a flip going the other way.
So my hope and goal would be to continue that partnership. And I think when you're talking about change, if you have change in leadership, that doesn't necessarily, I hope that the bonds between a community partner who both relies on the healthcare system as the healthcare system relies on them is stronger than any one person. So I just think that is just a really important key point, is that that's how I think you sustain these projects, and having it as an annual event with branching off from there is key.
Yeah, I agree. By the way, Adrian, thank you for the question. And when people pose questions, we'd like them to introduce themselves as well. And Adrian is the program director at Southwest Indiana Internal Medicine Residency Program. So thank you, Adrian. Trish Lafrada, do you have a variant on the question here? instead of it being GME folks,
Right. Yeah. And I think
and you do
sure.
first.
And I think one of our challenges has been the hospital leadership changing frequently and how we're really able to engage then with those leaders as well as C-suite leaders. So I appreciated that suggestion of ensuring that our project aligns with overall system goals, because I felt like that really helps show it takes the person out of it a bit, right? So even if that leader leaves, if their overall system goals haven't changed, we're able to continue to push that forward. But I do still feel like it's a challenge of the time then in energizing a new person around that project and initiative. And then that does feel like it takes a lot of time on the medical education end, but as well as that new leaders end. So I guess just even any suggestions around engaging new leaders in medical education, if maybe that isn't their background, would be helpful as well.
So I have a thought about that, Trish. Sometimes it's the skill of managing up and giving that new leader the opportunity to showcase something going on at his or her institution. We've talked already about having residents present and program leaders or NI leaders present, but strategically, there may be times you can go to a new leader and say, hey, here is an initiative that aligns with strategic goal number 5, and it's being done at your institution. We have individuals on our side, the GME side, who are the content experts, but if I can accompany you to your next XYZ meeting, board meeting, whatever it is, why don't you introduce the topic? I'll come in and provide detail, and it kind of, that's the managing up strategy for him or her to get a win and get connected to the project.
One other thought, and hi Trish, good to see you. In the other direction, you could invite the hospital CEO to a GMEC meeting and make sure you talk about NI and at that meeting, and make sure you really purposefully tie in the work that you're doing through NI and GMEC to the mission of the hospital and the health system. That would be an influencer for that leader to really dig deeper and stay better connected.
Thank you. Those are both very helpful ideas.
At a past NI meeting, we had a communication consultant come and talk with us, and their message was a little like your all's: communicate often, frequently, redundantly, all over the place. But the other strategies, some things they talked about, and have these been helpful, are fact sheets, banners, 1-minute elevator pitches, and that you prepare your GME team to be able to give those. Do you all have any strategies, tips for how to communicate? I know it sounds dumb, but email, we all know, is not exactly the best.
Yeah,
Well,
Deb, I know that Victor
sorry.
Kalade does that work, and it looks like Madeline maybe
Is
wanted
on.
to.
Yep.
Yeah.
Hi, my
Victor,
name's
with your
Madeline.
oh,
Hi, I'm a psychiatry resident at St. Luke's. So I think another way that might also be helpful is a lot of, at least at St. Luke's, a lot of our programs have representatives. I'm actually one of them that does a lot of work with other representatives. So obviously we all work with each other, we all get consulted by each other, but a time where we can just all get together and say, hey, this is something that's going on in our program or something that we're doing, if anybody is interested. And we do those once a month. And then we also have our GMEC meetings across the whole of GME that JP is also involved with too. So definitely the smaller monthly meetings are called our ARC meetings, and it's a resident council, might be a way to bring things up. I'm happy to share a flyer, or sometimes they're small. Like last time we only had 4 resident leaders on, but there were a couple different programs on there: dermatology, myself, radiology. So that could be a way too, if the different programs out there have those kinds of more intimate councils with resident leaders.
Great. Thanks, Madeline. Victor, you want to intro yourself and comment?
I've been taking notes as we've gone through the sessions. I've picked up a key phrase from JP and also from other speakers. And the last thing that I'm thinking about, I'll call it the little known C-suite goals. And it ties to the project that we'll discuss in our breakout group if you get to come there, if you get to see our poster. But the short version of it that's pertinent to what we're talking about now is we began to create a community linkage from scratch. And when the student that designed it first started, there was no buy-in on the other end of the first outreach that she went to. Essentially, they said, if this is research, we'll pay for the paper you use. We're not going to pay for the non-research angle of this project that you want to do. So we had to go elsewhere to get the money. But then as we began to do that, we got into a space where the people said, you know what? It's an expectation from leadership that all the leaders are doing something community facing. So if you don't get money from the next place you want to go to, we will give you money from our budget. And I thought, when does marketing give anybody money? I thought they just put posters up. So sometimes you'd be surprised that there are opportunities that nobody has advertised. It's not in we have a 5-pillar strategic plan for organization for 5 years. It's not written there that I'm aware of, but sometimes you get into these spaces and you hear things that allow you to connect in ways that are useful to you to advance your project.
Thank you, Victor. Reactions, strategies, additional from panel?
One other tip is don't feel like you have to solve the communication problem yourself. Become best friends with your communication team. And you may need one of your senior leaders to help reinforce the importance with the communications team, but the communications team knows.
One of the things, JP, I'll take you in a second. One of the things that always surprises me is the importance for our nonprofit organizations of being an education enterprise. They declare it on their federal statements and tax whatever. Is that a mechanism, an in for us to say, we don't just give you that value, here is additional value we add? Has anybody ever had that dialogue? David?
So I think I hadn't really thought of that. But I think that's something to keep in mind. It's a really good point, Deb.
Yeah, we did a key stakeholder leaders interviews about what they value about GME, and one of the ones they value, things that they valued, including the CFO who raised this, is that we help create a academic learning environment that helps move the organization and some innovation that I think NIs are particularly strong at. So making those connections even with the CFO and other key stakeholders that are the C-suite.
So
JP?
Deb, let me throw out an
Yeah.
expensive communication strategy, and that's those residents who are part of your NI, and you really set the bar high for their level of engagement and participation. And if they achieve or exceed that consistent level of participation, I've sent them all to the wrap-up meeting. And there's no better advertising continuing an initiative than a bunch of residents coming back and saying, I just got to spend 3 days in San Diego or Phoenix and stood with pride around our poster. And you say, well, my system can't afford that. But that's where, if you built up this engagement and kind of involvement of the CEO, and you explain to them, we're going to be on the national stage. I'm going to send back pictures that you can put in our newsletter. Here are the other institutions, by the way, top 100, top 50 that are part of this initiative. It's an easier sell, and that creates such a buzz within the programs that we have no shortage of trainees who want to be part of the next initiative.
We too do that, and but they have to have completed their project, be on time. We use that as a lever because apparently they like the locations and travel associated with the places for the meeting. That word gets out. JP.
Yeah, I've been chomping at the bit a little bit because I love these comments, and I wanted to just add a couple of comments on it. I think Andy's comment on use your internal communications, the marketing, is spot on, and it's like low hanging fruit that like I think I didn't really even think about, and I've been doing this for over 20 years until we started a new teaching hospital, and we engaged the marketing department to help us with internal messaging about, hey, we're bringing new residents here, we're bringing fellows. What is a resident? What is a fellow? You know, and anything from department meetings with the nursing staff to we put posters on each of the floors that describe this is what a resident is. This is the plan. I mean, like, you know, so to Andy's point, I think those are low hanging fruit components that we should all be tapping into to kind of help with the involvement, the updating, and then the spreading of stuff. Deb, I think that what you said about your process of engaging senior leaders, that fits so well with some of these new IRs that are coming out, especially regarding creating a shared vision with the primary participating clinical, the PCPS, the primary, clinical learning site. And so, which is made up of all executives. It's a passover from Clear, but like that strategy. So I think you wrote an article on that, Deb, if I'm not mistaken, didn't you? You know, so you might want to include that link down there because that's an approach on how some of the GME office can really build the that PCLE structure within the institution. I really just absolutely love that. And then one of the things talking what David said about and Aaron about like this building this web of safety. That's not the right word. I wanted to say safety net, but it's kind of like when leaders change or you have leadership change, if you have a multiple stakeholder group, right? You have numerous people. I mean, I think about like the GME executive committee that I have that's made up of all hospital presidents and all that. It's a great place to showcase, hey, here's how we build community through AIMC, type of things, or have a resident present there. But that, it's kind of a shared pool of knowledge that when you have a leader go or whatnot, there's still that shared pool that can help support the GME mission and ensure alignment. So I just wanted to, again, I was chomping at the bit, so I kind of wanted to just jump in there. So.
Raj, you just were able to join us. What's your thinking and introduce yourself, please, besides being our NI9 co-leader.
Hey everybody, Rajiv, Kala, and I'm sorry I'm running late. I had another meeting and in my head I thought 10 p.m. Central Time instead of Eastern Time, so I do apologize. But I really love how JP sort of framed this, especially with the new institutional requirements that are coming on and the continued alignment with the PCLEs. I think that's just so critical, and it's. I think a lot of strategies we're going to learn a lot as time progresses and as we better understand what the new requirements look like and how to engage and how to innovatively engage. So.
Exactly. Other audience questions, thoughts? One of the things that I struggle with when we're trying to sustain our teams is the competition of every other expectation on faculty and residents. And we try and create it as triple win-wins and counting and checking every box. How do you all give us strategies for keeping resident and faculty who often are based on their clinical productivity, and that's what gets the braces on their kids? How do you keep that going? So not just an NI, but a great initiative that you want to keep supported.
Yeah, and I'd love to hear from not only our panelists, but any of our participants on the call. I mean, we know at the end of every initiative, when we do our final proceedings booklet and you complete your project management plans, the barrier, the number one barrier every time is time. So how do we get this this need sort of farther up the pile and, more consciously aware, not only getting it there, but keeping it there and sustaining that excitement. My personal experience through the years has been with residents, it's usually not that difficult. I mean, the time issue is, but they're very enthusiastic. They, they love doing the work. They love being in cohorts and they love going to meetings. I think to Deb's point, that beleaguered faculty member who, just there aren't seemingly enough hours in the day for everything that we're asking of them. So anyone on the panel or really any of our participants, this is a ongoing issue that we'd love some shared wisdom.
David.
Yeah, I think this is a very important real world challenge. I think sometimes you have the very junior faculty member who's very enthusiastic, but we have a responsibility to sometimes protect that person. It's a little easier as a senior faculty person to kind of have those closed door discussions, and so I think you have to choose who leads the project carefully, and I think all of us in a leadership role do have to kind of think about that responsibility. I think the other thing that is to spread the responsibility. So again, I'm looking at two of our institutions that have been very involved in NIs, and we've shared the leadership responsibility among a number of faculty in different departments. And again, it takes a skill to organize a team, but it doesn't put an undue burden on a single person.
Can I maybe ask a corollary, and I don't know if, Andy, this would be the right person, but I think one of the challenges with sustainability of some of the visionary projects that we have is that balance between operational goals and mission, the mission of the institution. Maybe if you look at sort of educational and operations, the fight for resources, if you will, resources can be money and time. And I would love to hear strategies from anyone's perspective of, we always know, engage your C-suite, and if you can get their buy-in and if you can show them value, then it'll be sustainable. But I think maybe kind of a real life kind of how to have that conversation, especially in the world of healthcare finances now.
I can make a few comments related to what has been said somewhat already, but just to focus on alignment of goals, and if everyone's trying to get to the best outcomes for patients and communities, and these projects and GME generally is part of how we do that. And one of the ways to explain that I think works is, this is our future workforce. We want to engage residents and fellows and students in the work we're doing so that they can be better leaders and doctors in the future, and we want to hire them in our health system, by the way, as well. And so that's part of the argument. But the other part is just creating the connections between the dots to say this work is going to help contribute to this outcome, and just saying that and being clear about that, I think is important. And that's another one of those things you're going to have to say it multiple times. It's not going to be a one-shot explanation. It's going to take multiple conversations to convince sometimes that you can connect. These dots are very connected, and this is a very important contributor to our outcomes.
Boy, I am hearing repeatedly communicate up and down, alignment, getting that visibility, having a sharp focus. And I know Dr. Bill Yost, William, you're going to add some info for us. Why don't you?
So, and after we hear from John, Deb, there is Samant Baldi in the chat.
Great.
Yeah, and honestly, I'm not sure I have much to add now, Deb, now that you made your point. I certainly agree with Andy that, and with all of our speakers, that alignment with institutional goals is key, demonstration of a return on investment. And the third, I think, is visibility. when we've had previous projects that kind of somehow or other slipped onto the back burner and weren't tended as closely, they've had a tendency to lose their momentum. But when we've hardwired that in a way that resulted in, for example, regular reports to the GME committee, where I do have members of the C-suite in attendance, then it's constantly in front of them. And they understand the importance of whether it was our wellness initiative or whether it's the resident quality council that came out of a previous national initiative. Those have been the ones that have been successful. I'd love to tell you all of our NI projects have been sustainable. They have not, but some have been, and those were the three qualities that characterized all of them.
Great, thanks, John. I don't fear that. There we go. Just pop up. Thank you.
Thank you. It's Bhakti. Hi, my name is Bhakti Samant. I'm one of the third-year pediatric resident, also the chief for this year. And I work at Our Lady of the Lake Children's Hospital in Baton Rouge from Louisiana. And thank you for letting us be a part of this amazing program. So a few things that I would like to share from our resident perspective. I think somebody did talk about like representatives. Now, some of the challenges that we feel here are also like we have a main hospital, which is like more of an adult medicine, and a pediatric side of it. The way we collect data or process it at two different hospitals is different. So what we as a team do is like we have monthly meetings and we kind of communicate with each other to kind of get that information and kind of see how best to utilize that info. And I would like to hear if there are any other ways you can do it, can optimize that. From a resident perspective, me being a chief, what we also do as practices is we have our monthly, like we call them like the faculty meetings or like the highlights of the program. And that's where we kind of bring out these initiatives and talk about the success stories. So that way the residents can be still interested and be a part of this program. And this also includes like the residents. But then when we have our monthly meetings, we also include our social worker team, our nursing staff, and everybody. So it's like a multidisciplinary team kind of being a part of this. Thank you.
Excellent comments. Reactions? Dittos from our panel? You've done something that we rarely do, is let this group be speechless back on it. We're nearing the time to get closing, and I want to give our panelists a chance to just give us a couple of closing thoughts on really how to articulate the ROIs of our national initiatives, and how would you think about pointing us to the future? And Aaron, why don't you kick us off again?
Sure. Well, thanks everybody. Thanks for allowing me to be here on this panel. As a new participant, this is all very novel to me, and learning a lot about all the ins and outs of these projects. But I just feel very grateful to be a part of this, because I think what it's allowed us to do is, I think a key word, if I had to pick one, would be just collaboration. Collaboration not only within our organization, from leadership, just connections that really allow us to take this a step further than just be a session for the residents. It allows them to engage outside the hospital and clinic walls in a way that I don't think we could have otherwise. And so just that when we talk about the macro collaboration outside our organization is so key. And I've really found that to be a special part of this experience. So thank you again for allowing me to be here today.
Thanks, Aaron. David?
Yeah, I agree. This has been a terrific discussion, and thank you for allowing me to be part of it. At least for this session, the one word that hasn't come up yet, which is another really important ROI, is a scholarly output. And I think back again to new sponsoring institutions that are just getting started. They may have a lot of very busy, community physicians who are volunteering their time to help get residency programs started. We're so grateful when they do that, but they may not have time to do scholarly work. This investment will lead to scholarly output. It's something you put on your annual program evaluation. It's a published abstract with a a numbered published abstract rather, which is really important. It's important for your continued accreditation. It's important, should be important to your C-suite. If they are billing themselves as an institution supporting academics, they want to see that. So that's another important ROI that's not limited to the band of GME. It's important to the entire institution.
And Andy.
I love the scholarship comment and think of it as a way to change the world, because you are putting evidence out into the world that others can learn from, borrow from, and in turn implement in their own institutions. So that there's a lot of power there. And then the other comment is, we talked about collaboration and alignment. The word that came to me a moment ago was connectivity. The connectivity part of this, I think, is very powerful as well. And there's multiple layers of connectivity. There's the connectivity of yourself as a participant with AIMC, with your colleagues. There's the connectivity within your organization with the work that you're doing, and that connectivity, to those outcomes. Ultimately, we're all trying to improve the health and healthcare for our patients and our communities. And the work that you're doing here is highly connected to that. So it's a really powerful opportunity, and excited to see everyone so engaged. Thank you.
Super. With that, we'll bring this session to a close and allow JP to bring it home.
Yeah.
I just put what I heard as some of the themes into the chat. So
That's outstanding.
clarity about value and alignment. Value added is one of the values we add. Workforce, community, scholarship, all of those fall in that bucket. Engagement, communication, and stability, or sustainability. JP?
Participants, and then thank you, David, Aaron, and Andy, for being our panelists to provide those different perspectives. I am really jazzed up about stuff like this because with all these, for example, for these new IRs that are coming out from ACGME, this is how we help each other to meet those requirements. So super, super awesome and great ideas and experiences. And then I want to thank Dr. Simpson for facilitating an outstanding session. Great job, Deb, as always.
when you hang out with the three gentlemen, and JP, I didn't include you in that list. It is easy and an honor. Thank you all.
You're really going to get to hear the value of this synopsis. So before we turn over to our National Advisory Council, I really wanted to take this opportunity to get some reflections from them. As all of you know, Carla, Lisa, Ellen, and Liz are really national leaders in organized medicine and have done some of the big work that we're talking about doing, and are for experts to share some reflections of their times in your groups, and maybe some lessons learned. So
all right, well, I'll go first. I think that's what we decided. So really my observations of this group this time was how far along all of the projects have come, and the level of collaboration and just thought sharing that happened was really, really inspiring. And it really was a testament to everybody getting more, I guess, comfortable with their projects and really having thought through so many things that they could offer suggestions to the other groups. The other thing that came up with that is we're screening for and finding barriers, say like transportation, but then when we connect them to a resource, it might require transportation to get to that resource. So really being thoughtful about how and what we're connecting them to.
Excellent. Hi, everyone. Lisa Howley with the Association of American Medical Colleges, learning about all of your projects, and it really is inspirational. So thank you for all that you guys are doing. I love, first of all, that all the projects that I heard from involved medical student learners, so thank you, as well as others, right? Very, very diverse teams that you all put together, which is fabulous. connecting of course, with your community partners, and involving your medical student learners and resident learners in those partnerships. Every one of your projects is complex, right? And everyone is placed in a complex health system. What is the impact, or is there an impact of engaging as a learner in that project with this collaborative, diverse team in this complex project? I hope that we can help spread. I would love to help share and communicate your great work across academic medicine.
One of the things that I really appreciated from today's conversation is the exchange of ideas between all the participants in our group, both the individuals who are working on projects and those of us who are talking to you about the projects, and to help provide some information, some exchange of ideas about how other people.
Education to advocacy. So first, I just want to thank AIAMC for including ACCME in this national initiative. It's just really a privilege for me to have a window into this immense undertaking. It's given me an opportunity to talk with the continuing medical education community about the variety of ways your teams are trying to identify and address barriers to achieving health equity. And people are very heartened to hear of the breadth of these undertakings. So, you know, what I saw at the, you doing at the beginning of this initiative is identifying barriers and designing projects to address barriers. And today we heard about, you know, additional barriers that have arisen as you're executing your interventions. But there are opportunities for ongoing education of clinicians at every level. So, you know, in the interest of sustainability and keeping the momentum going, maybe there's a way to build in tools to improve awareness of social determinants of health into all CME programs. Grand rounds is a great one. Victor said, think about how you could weave this into some grand rounds. But also CME is, you know, enduring materials, ongoing online education.
You know, the importance of the work that we're doing and recognizing that what may seem as a barrier to us really is an opportunity for collaboration to close these gaps so that we really can make macro level changes. And again, I said it at our small NAC meeting. I love that, you know, everyone around this Zoom room right now, you're addressing social and moral determinants of health. So know that this work is extremely, extremely important.
Actually, in the chat, Deb Simpson was asking Ellen, might you have a reference about how physicians value CME? And I see accme.org.value. So that's terrific. So yeah, we've got check out in the chat, and we do capture the chat. So I know there are a lot of great resources went in there today. With the conference recording, you'll get the chat notes as well.
Improving access to care. And so I wanted to mention that. I'd love to follow up and connect with you directly on that. That's Ohio Health Team. So
the importance of connecting with people like Ellen in the CME world, you know, a number of our projects.
And it'll be great to see the fourth and final meeting with everybody's work. I think number two is, and then Kimberly, I'll pass it over to you, is, you know, I always wonder, like, you know, how effective are these meetings? Like, how effective is the whole, you know, project? And I was looking at our like goals that we had about, you know, National Initiative 10 and around environment's efforts around social moral determinants of health, you know, producing scholarly activity. Like we're making great progress on this stuff. And like we are achieving, and you are achieving, you know, goals of what you want to do around this piece of work. I was moved by the Zoom meeting. It was really great what people came up with to help address these issues that our kayak group for, you know, putting this meeting together, for our NAC folks for your participation, as what's been already mentioned, the facilitators for facilitating a great panel discussion this morning, for our panelists, for you, the participants, just really wonderful. And so with that, Kimberly, I'm just going to pass it over to you for, you know, final comment.